What is going to happen to Hong Kong? Serious. Please let me explain a bit with my poor English. Hope that you could know a bit more about the situation and how Hong Kongers think. Let's say the national security law. The CCP could do a lot of things to HK by paying the local legislative council. Credits. Some info sources from Fist and News. 1. The CCP could set up a new secret police branch in HK, of which the HK local government has no power to control or monitor them. The secret police could arrest or punish citizens opposed them. That means they could do what they want, searching people's house without permission. Imagine if a person was living alone, who would know if he/she was arrested secretly. 2. Prohibit behaviors claimingly harmful to national security and regularly report to the CCP. The HKSAR will definitely do more about national security education. The teachers, textbooks or lessons may have to examine by the government before. In the past year, there were already teachers being fired/punished just because they had opinions on police brutality or about the government. People have no right to express our opinions. We are worried about our next generation will be brainwashed. Our students have a subject general studies. Students have to learn about history, economic, news and so on, trained to have critical thinking. But now they said this is not good. They want to control what we think, to see what they want us to see, to learn what they want us to know. I don't know how will Hong Kongers become after 10 or 20 years. Hong Kong may become another city which totally different from now. We are scared. For me, I won't consider to have baby, I just couldn't imagine how they would grow up. This make me relates to the book 1984 by George Orwell. I know I'm a bit too pessimistic. Hope this long wordings won't scare you away. There are still other more rules about the national security law I haven't typed out. What about migration? Isn't that an option for you? It must be a scary thought, but if the future looks so grim, wouldn't it be better to start a life somewhere else? Hong Kong person here. People who can afford immigration will emigrate to other countries. Those who cannot will resist for as long as possible. Overall the odds are stacked against us. Edit. Fix the grammar. Cut here. Wanna add a bit of my opinion. A lot who can afford to immigration will leave, but a lot of them are also staying to fight till we possibly can't. A lot of activists and artists had already stated that they're willing to stay and fight alongside everyone else. I think China is just going to cripple them and no one will do anything about it because China is too important. Unfortunately, I think you might be right. Hong Kong people here already plan to go back to the UK in the summer. I cannot risk my life in HK with my partner. I will start a new life in August, hopefully a good one in the UK. Good luck. It's sad to say, but China will implement standard imperial policy. They will flood Hong Kong with mainland Chinese who are loyal to the CCP. They will make the environment extremely hostile for native Hong Kong population and those who hold Western ideals of democracy and freedom. They will either outright send them to re-education camps or make it extremely difficult for them to find work or access basic services like healthcare. Essentially, Hong Kong people will become second-class citizens. The social credit system will be the CCP's tool. Those with the fund to emigrate will do so. Those without the funds will be forced to move to mainland China, where they will be beaten into submission by peer pressure from their coworkers and neighbors. The West won't care because money talks. Doing business with China is more important than intervening to save Hong Kong. The West won't intervene because there is no reason to potentially start a war with China over Hong Kong. At least with Taiwan there is a natural barrier separating it from the mainland. Hong Konger here. The news about the security law has been circulating around Reddit for a few days. As bad as the situation seems, I've been trying to tell people there is hope. Whether Hong Kong can survive this depends on the international world. Help raise awareness and your government will have to do something about it. Boycott China goods, so the businesses will have to move to elsewhere. Every bit will matter even if it's just simply keeping an eye on the situation. Edit. For those who say we ain't got any hope, there's news today that UK will accept BNO holders to live in UK. The international world is not going to risk war to defend one country, two systems. We are not even going to risk worsening a global recession to defend it, especially now. Honestly, I'm surprised it's lasted as long as it has. No better history than China has of honoring its treaty commitments. I expected the tanks to have rolled in within a couple of years. The writing's been on the wall for Hong Kong since other provinces got as wealthy and b. China joined the WTO. I expect a Mars exodus any day now. God knows, I wouldn't want to live under the CCP. People are protesting right now when I'm commenting. People will keep fighting. TS just gonna be like the Tiananmen Square. Long answer from a Hong Konger here. Bear with me, I promise you it's worth the read. The moves that the CCP is making are meant to instill fear and caution and increased stability, as they keep saying, in HK society, give the party free rein to arrest dissidents that they previously couldn't arrest because they had to keep up pretenses that HK had law enforcement independence from the mainland and are basically a ma of duck to the west and Taiwan. More and more reporters will be denied entry into Hong Kong as the CCP attempts to control the narratives being told to the world as well as to its supporters. Self-censorship will increase online and in person as citizens are encouraged to report on each other whenever they suspect someone else to be an enemy of the state. The HK police and newly formed political police / national security ministry in HK will join forces to apprehend anyone who is deemed a threat to national security, which will allow the CCP to basically arrest anyone who they want to be put down. This will include people who are outspoken and critical towards the HK and central governments. The rich and pro-Beijing social factions will stay as they believe in the measures anyway. The rich, middle class, unattached or pro-democracy social factions will begin to emigrate to other countries at an accelerated pace because they can, and have eats to protect. Those who are defiant and brave will stay until they deem the situation untenable and leave. The lower class, no matter how defiant they are, won't be able to leave. They will either fight till their last breath or be crushed under the state suppression apparatus. Realistically, there will be a lingering white terror in the air for years to come as pro-Beijing citizens are empowered to suppress others. The police will be empowered to arrest more and more people / protesters / pro-democracy supporters who speak out until people are too scared to come out anymore. Foreign investment and capital is going to diminish big time as multinationals, especially US and UK firms, decide that they no longer want to invest in China as part of their new Cold War strategy, which will lead to higher unemployment in HK. Our situation is going to keep deteriorating unless one of the following happens. 1. The collapse of the CCP in China, which to be fair, may lead to civil war and it'll be a shit show, but at least it'll present an opportunity for change. 2. Xi steps down willingly or is forced out, possibly around 2022, leading to a shift in national policy, which would likely lead to such high pressure tactics on us being relieved, which his successor would do, because his number one job would be to alleviate tensions between China and the rest of the world. 3. China's economy is so weakened to the point that the CCP has no choice but to bend to the West's will with regards to trade and other affairs, meaning that HK will have to be opened back up eventually as a place for Western corporations and Chinese corporations to do business in. Until then, those that believe that HK's strengths lie in being a relatively neutral grounds for business have no choice but to keep resisting, to show the world that the will of the people is not the same as that of communist China. We will fight until we can't anymore. We are fearful and worried, but our spirit is strong, and that is why I'm optimistic that one day we will win. Xi steps down willingly or is forced out, possibly around 2022. Great post. What makes you think this could happen? I don't think he's going anywhere willingly, unfortunately. I honestly think they'll be silenced and nobody will do a thing about it. Africa and Europe get a lot of their trade wealth from China, so they won't stand up for Hong Kong because of their bank amounts, and America is too busy in fighting between the two political parties to do anything constructive, much less take on a nuclear world power alone. Also, don't forget that America gets a lot of its trade wealth from China. I've been wondering the same thing. I don't know what to do besides continue the conversation, so the world won't forget they are still fighting, and it's getting worse. I hate the Chinese government, but I hate to say that the world is too scared of them to do anything to help Hong Kong. If anything happens, it's up to the little people like us. How is that no one is able to stop them? With all the cover-ups, making people disappear, now they are trying to instigate a war with India. How can they get away with so much? Where is the stop to all this? Outside of Reddit, nobody seems to really care much about Hong Kong. Excuse me if I'm being rude, but what even happened to Hong Kong? No one will stand up for them. They won't fight to win, so they'll live on their knees or die. That's just how we've been rolling for 50 millennia. This inevitability is why so many Hong Kong families sent their children out of Hong Kong ahead of the original changeover. It was never going to be any different, and some people got a quarter century more than they feared they were going to, because have seen this was coming for 30 years now. There was a Mar exodus in '89. I expect there will be another now, and after that whoever stays there is just going to have to live under the CCP. Hong Kong will do whatever we could for our freedom and rights. We need your support. We need global attention. Don't let our voice suppressed by CCP. What can we do? Deleted. Thank you so much for this comment. Please, stay safe. One country, two system will become one country, one system. The CCP will be free to impose any law they like in Hong Kong, and every protesters will be charged for treasons, or whatever the hell they like. Foreigner who lived in HK until very recently. Hong Kong is going down. I firmly believe this is the end of HK as we know it. China will pass laws, occupy the city, and strip all freedoms away. The rest of the world will protest and condemn, but won't do jack shiz, because China is too valuable of a trading and production partner. HK will cease to exist, and the rest of the world will keep on going as if nothing changed. We know the CCP has a few ideas how to change Hong Kong for the better one. Education. The CCP has already worked on it. The top universities headmasters are more or less forced / are pro-Beijing. 2. Politics correctness above law. We are already seeing the blunt unfair treatment of citizens with different political opinion. For example, the pro-Beijing crowd can gather for some 20 people next to police without a care, violating the social crowd control ban, while pro-democracy political party holding a booth to distribute hygiene products are targeted and arrested. 3. Swear loyalty as government officials means only pro-Beijing politicians can rise to important roles. This includes less politically involved public servant like firefighters. 4. White terror on all media and pro-democracy politicians who try to request foreign nations to help. Maybe even I'm in trouble for writing this, but it might get even worse. We don't know where the line is drawn. Foreign press and pro-democracy press should be very concerned. 5. Strong PR work to establish new truth, and a lot of emphasis on order and in accordance to law. 6. I suspect the Law Department will be heavily censored as well. 7. Allowing more mainlanders to come over and form a new pro-Beijing stance. As a combination of all above, it will reshape Hong Kong into a different Hong Kong in the long run. What Hong Kongers are hoping. 1. Foreign countries to impose sanction to Hong Kong pro-Beijing politicians and CCP. 2. Cancel any special trade status Hong Kong gets. 3. Aid pro-democracy movement if possible. 4. Maybe an exodus immigration policy. Part of above is to threaten CCP to stop messing with Hong Kong free society. But Hong Kong is pretty much going to fall imo unless we achieve some sort of independence to have more control over our politics, or the CCP realizing we are better off left alone. The spirit of Hong Kong however will remain with the Hawkers, and no matter what and where, we will stand by the free world. And we hope you can all remember what we fought for and what happened to us. Hong Kong will have no border with mainland China. The cities of Hong Kong and Shenzhen will become one megacity. This scenario is assuming that Hong Kong has lost its special status and had become part of the mainland for years. Former hooker. People are gonna leave. Either that or things in HK will maybe just stay the same for quite some time. Won't be expecting an ending anytime soon. This is a fight between two evils. I mean, I dunno. Been a while since I've actually lived in HK. Last time was in December when I was visiting my family. HK is a messy place, and I'm bittersweet at the fact that my family would yeet me all the way to New Zealand so I can be happy while they're stuck in that pit of a place, not to mention financial problems. They told me not to worry about them, but as a high schooler, I just can't stop worrying. Asking political questions in English on Reddit, a site predominantly filled with individuals with Western ideals and a lack of understanding of Asian political social atmospheres and its histories, is a great way to find yourself in an echo chamber of perpetual hatred and misinformation. Yeah, I was going to say this. If there is one thing you can compliment the US on, it is their incredible soft power and ability to control almost any narrative on the internet. As a Hong Kongers, I feel hopeless about the current situation of Hong Kong. However, we will stand against tyranny until all of us got killed by CCP. We will never surrender to CCP. Edit. Typo. Unless they can succeed successfully from China, I don't think it will be good for Hong Kong. Did you suddenly turn into a goose? If they stop fighting, they will get annihilated by China. This is why they have to keep fighting. Keep disrupting, as they have no other choice. As far as the rest of the world, well, being so dependent on China's cheap labor turns out is bad for the global economy. Spreading the wealth to more countries, even if it costs more, would be a lot better long-term solution than dumping all our eggs into one basket. If they stop fighting, they will get annihilated by China. This is why they have to keep fighting. Keep disrupting, as they have no other choice. They'll get annihilated even if they fight. Nothing is gonna stop this. The deal was made long ago. The protests aren't even delaying the inevitable. They're simply the last spasms of a dying entity. It sucks. I believe in democracy, but the writing has been on the wall for Hong Kong since 1984. As far as the rest of the world, well, being so dependent on China's cheap labor turns out is bad for the global economy. No, it's not. Before coronavirus, the global economy was doing great. Spreading the wealth to more countries, even if it costs more, would be a lot better long-term solution than dumping all our eggs into one basket. We have already done that. China is far from the only cheap labor game in town. They are the biggest though, which naturally means they'll get a lot of business. They just have a lot of potential workers. The Chinese will slowly educate the next generation to be less rebellious. The rebellious people of this generation will be arrested. That's their plan, anyways. The social movement has no chance of succeeding as long as China maintains the strategic advantage and suppression of its movement. Right now, the people of Hong Kong hold a nationalist vigor that motivates them to act radically in violence against the puppet government, but over time the costs of their actions will weigh heavily upon them. Eventually the riots will end, and the protesters will disperse. The people will continue to live under the autocracy in Beijing in relative comfort. They will maintain that nationalist vigor internally, but will be unable to truly achieve that goal as long as China maintains its strategic advantage economically and militarily. The main two hopes for Hong Kong to achieve its goal is to have international backlash and threats be strong enough to motivate Beijing to allow Hong Kong act independently. However, with the recent realist actions by large players in the international community, the United Kingdom and the US to be specific, actions by the international community against China may be more benign as countries become less motivated to join united directives in international institutions and are instead focusing on domestic policy instead of foreign policy. The second hope is a hypothetical situation of political instability in China and a loss of legitimacy in the Chinese regime, which would weaken the Chinese government's ability to enforce policy in Hong Kong, thus motivating the previously suppressed separatists to rise in revolt once again. In conclusion, the situation in Hong Kong is overall a seeming defeat for the Hong Kong separatists and a success for the Xi Jinping administration. Beijing won't let it carry on much longer, as they also have international pressure from the Rona getting out. I would put money on the following. 1. For health and safety, foreigners, especially Westerners, will be required to leave. 2. Martial law declared. 3. Media blackout. 4. Cellular comms shut down. 5. People will start to disappear. 6. 5 to 6 weeks later, HK will reopen as if nothing happened, minus a few thousand people. They'll become part of China, and Taiwan will be next. I give Taiwan some chance. They at least have a standing army, navy, and air force. Hong Kong has always been a city-state under the rule and protection of others, but they are now under attack from the group that is supposed to defend them. Taiwan has always been their own country and always been under threat from the communists, and they are still getting weapon supplies from others. An island is also really difficult to take by force. China doesn't even need to use force to take Hong Kong. Hong Kong can't really resist. I hope that the people can get out while they can. US invaded Iraq, based on lies, and international community did nothing. Same with Russia. Powerful countries won't go against each other for this. India is currently expanding its border in Nepal by pushing their border and deploying armies. It's sad, but I don't think any significant help is coming for people of Hong Kong from outside. Big countries bully small countries all the time. That's the sad reality. People living in HK who do not want to be ruled by China should try to get out immediately. Hong Kong would become part of the dictatorship under CCP, losing all international statuses and edges. No more Cantonese, no more civilized local hackers, and of course, secret police like Gestapo during Nazi rule will appear in Hong Kong under sunlight. No more Cantonese. The Chinese province of Guangdong speaks Cantonese. That's over 100 million Cantonese speakers right there. Can't speak for other countries, but the US will probably just say, "But we condemn China's actions. We stand with Hong Kong." China will go through with it, and we'll simply ask when the next iPhone comes out. I'm pleasantly surprised the protests have lasted so long. I hope they are successful, but believe they will eventually get worn down through a combination of isolationism, disarmament, identification, and vilification. They will try to limit news coming out of Hong Kong and put pressure on companies and countries that show any connection to the protests. Limiting anything the protesters use will become scarce. Facial recognition and moles will be used to identify the protesters. And of course, if the protesters can be made to seem like crazy/evil/stupid, kind of how the Occupy Wall Street protesters in the USA began to be viewed, the populace will not complain when the government clamps down tight. It's happening already. Since the hiatus of movement, government just kept introducing more ridiculous law and decisions to oppress the movement. Hence why we do have to fight back with any we have got. r/Hong Kong to interact with locals. It will get ugly. CCP will duck them up for ways to Sunday and make HK a part of mainland China. Nothing more, nothing less. The world leaders don't care. No one cared about Ukraine or Syria. This is the correct answer. Filipino here, and I feel sad to Hong Kong people. CCP is also step by step taking over our country, and our stupid govs are very supportive whatever they are doing in our country. If only I have the chance to leave this country, I will. I think HK is one charismatic leader away from full revolution. I don't see a free HK without help from Taiwan though. China will definitely reply with force, secret police, alienation, live rounds. That will be their undoing though. This is a different situation than China's genocide of the Uyghurs. The people of HK have Western values, are familiar with English, and have strong ties to the UK. HK also has political, social, and economic ties. With all that and an American election coming up, Trump is looking for any excuse to gain power, and he has no concept of what saying war will do in reality. In short, a lot of people, from HK and elsewhere, are going to fight and die. In the end, the best that can be hoped for is another armistice. I've been reading some comments saying how China would manage to win this time, but I sincerely hope not. I have nothing but respect for those in Hong Kong trying to save their country and democracy, and I for one believe you will be able to push through and live on. Stay strong and keep on fighting. Sending lots of love from South Korea. I've got a friend from Hong Kong. Rich people like her emigrate to other countries like Thailand. The lower income people don't have that choice. One problem with the emigration is that the government only lets you take a small amount of money with you across the border in fear of all the people emigrating. So it's not easy to emigrate with all your money and stuff. My friend also showed me videos she made from her balcony and said that a common belief is that the Chinese policemen are on some kind of drug. Their behavior is too aggressive to be natural. All of the important positions like policemen are taken over by the Chinese too. TL. Doctor, the country is getting a duck with a 10-inch dildo coated in sandpaper. Pretty horrible stuff. I'll just put it like this. In 100 years no one will remember HK once had freedom on its own. New generations there will be taught about how glorious China is, and how HK was a bad place before China took over. And sadly there is not a thing the international community can do to stop what's going on. As an American, I can't even fathom how helpless the citizens feel. I hate it. And it makes me nervous, because I know China is starting to take over more of the sea by my wife's country, Philippines. Granted, two different situations of course. I don't think anyone can predict what will happen. Prior to the 1997 handover, the sentiment was even worse than it is now. There was so much uncertainty and fear. Wikipedia, the people with money emigrated to other countries. Lots of property was sold for cheap. A few years after the handover, when they saw everything was really just the same rich people that left came back and drove the property value up again. Hong Kong is just gonna become Macau. If you're rich it'll be great. If you're poor it'll be not so great. Democracy honestly barely even factors into it. It's not like having democracy made it easier to be poor in Hong Kong. Being poor there sucks as much as being poor anywhere. I don't want to sound imperialist, but would it have been better for Hong Kong if the British were still in charge? Hong Kong is in the front line of fighting against the totalitarian regime CCP. We are the symbol of freedom and democracy fighter that goes against CCP. The oppression to Han Kongers will be more and more severe. However, we won't give in our autonomy. We will fight till the end. The war had already started. I'll be honest, no major power wants to go to war over HK for arguably good reason. Since China is a nuclear superpower and the CCP has been slowly cementing control since the handover, with the current batch of anti-democracy legislation really just being the final nail. It is sad, but we are probably looking at another Tibet, where the CCP will roll in and will attempt to politically and culturally absorb the region as much as they can. Maybe it will spur trade sanctions despite China's role as a major consumer and manufacturer, but who knows. Hey guys, if you're reading this I'm asking you all to recognize the significance of China's actions and step up to stop this injustice. As consumers, we can stop buying goods made in China and therefore supporting human rights violations. China is one of the few advanced countries left where these tragedies occur every day, and we must not allow it to continue as people. This isn't about the US, or England, or France, or even Hong Kong. This is about humanity, and I believe that the love for freedom will conquer this communist dictatorship. It'll probably continue to decline compared to other Chinese cities and eventually be integrated into the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area. Dude, unless there is war or the whole world sanctions China, HK is lost. They can protest all they want, but that has never worked in a dictatorship. The only way dictatorships have ever really fallen is by blood. The ringleaders of the violent protesters will likely be locked up. Hong Kong will resume business as they always have, now with COVID-19 as a consideration. I don't know that there's anything else to happen. Han Kongja here. The autonomy of Hong Kong is now eroded, and Hong Kong will now become another mainland Chinese city. They'll get annihilated, and we'll as a world do duck all because the economy. The most direct consequence would be the restraint on freedom of speech. Everything you say or type would be brought under close scrutiny. If you criticize the HK government or the central government, you can be accused of subverting state power. News media would practice self-censorship more frequently under this too. Truth can no longer be delivered to dwellers of the city, as sensitive content like bad news on the mainland cannot be published. Just remember, the future can be much grimmer and darker than the ones we conceive. Many of us in HK are actually considering immigration in light of this gloomy prospect, but for those who are underprivileged, what can they do? 1. Life will continue on. I don't think social media or anything else will be censored as much, as honestly that's going to be extremely protested against. Personally, I've seen quite a few posts extremely dramatizing the situation, like saying, oh, I'm not going to use Reddit anymore as the CCP will censor it, and I think that's an overstatement. My hope is that sites won't be censored until I grow up, and I don't think it will, as these changes cannot happen overnight. 2. The economy collapse is going to come. The main problem here is that Hong Kong has a special status for trading and stuff like that, and if Hong Kong loses that status, it'll be almost game over for us. China doesn't care because it has money, but Hong Kong is going to have an economic collapse as companies leave and turn to mainland cities for business. So America, please don't take away the special status for us, cause that'll ruin our economy and barely impact China. 3. Protests will continue, but I really hope no violence happens. I agree with some views of the protesters, and that some policemen are very brutal, but I also view that some protesters are over-glorifying violence. Both sides, the CCP supporting side and the Hong Kong independence side, have a biased view of things and overlook certain sides of the situation. Not all police are violent, and those who are, the commanders and the stupid police, are no more than just grunts for the CCP. Nor is all protesters violent, most of them are peaceful, but it takes just a few rogue protesters / police to ruin your view of the opposing side. If you want to protest against the CCP, give them no reason to violate your rights, such as keeping all marches peaceful, and don't beat up shops that don't support your opinions. When you do that, you give them a reason to beat you up, even though the reason isn't completely justified. By showing complete peace, you can then show the world more clearly that you are 99% nice people, and erect the hate completely onto the CCP. 4. I'm mostly worried about me and my generation's future. A world war seems to be an extremely possible idea at this point, and with tons of stupid boomers ruling, I'm not sure what to do. These boomers left us this mess of a world, and it is our job to clean it up. 5. Summer is going to be a huge ruin. Basically, my bet is that quarantine-like life is going to be continued for me, and I won't get out to meet my friends too much. 6. Some countries are using this to take advantage of racism and justifying their actions of racism. Yes, this isn't completely related to HK, but it is related to Asian Americans. I just wish my Asian American friends out there to be safe, and let everyone remember that hate against China shouldn't be directed towards Asian Americans. Same goes for the colonization of Hong Kong. I've seen several comments and other posts saying that Hong Kong should have never been handed back to China. I agree that China is treating HK poorly, but then Britain did steal it from a weak China back then. If colonization continued, British people would have an advantage above us, just like how CCP people are richer than normal hackers. 7. The best situation is that when either Xi Jinping retires soon and has a successor that implements less strict policies. Just like how the Soviet Union slowly collapsed, I hope that will happen to China. This whole fuss was caused by Xi, and he's the one who should be gone. TLDR, the fuss is a bit overly dramatized. The economy will collapse if America denies our special status. Protests will continue, but hopefully the violence will die down. My generation, the kids in HK, will have a bad time, summer will suck, and I can't escape life. PLS no hate on Asian Americans, and the best case scenario is that Xi steps down and HK turns to the better. I'm welcome with any views / suggestions on my opinion, just don't make it extreme hate. I consider myself to have views on both sides, because my family side is extremely rich and loves the CCP, while my friends don't support the CCP. That's why I have views on both sides. Edit. I want to add to the fact that Reddit, nor Pokemon Go, if you've been browsing my comment history, will be censored immediately, because there's no use in censoring stuff like that, nor will it be effective. It'll be difficult for the government to immediately crack down on social apps, especially since even those people who love China might use apps like Discord or Telegram. I'll still be active now, but we'll have to wait and see. The protests might be cracked down upon, but I still think we'll have freedom online, just not as much freedom of speech in the real world. Finally, someone on Reddit that doesn't instantly hate on the CCP and actually reads both sides. HK is part of China. Yes, China has a different system that you may not like, but it works for them. If people in America wanted to be independent, I'm sure the government would force them to abide your ways and stay a single country. Oh right, that happened in the 1860s. This is so sad. I know Chinese Muslims are also having problems as well as Tibet. I wish someone would do something about China. That country is out of control. Give it a couple years, if that. I have been waiting for China, possibly along with Russia, to find some reason to start WWII. Hell, the US is already in a cold war with them. It will probably be absorbed into Guangdong province as the city of Xiangang. He'll escape his captors and climb the Empire State Building. Oh, wrong Kong. Without meaning to sound cavalier, say goodbye to Hong Kong as we know it. I do not believe anyone wants to go to war over Hong Kong. All that will happen is countries like the US will just slow down the inevitable conclusion of their fate. I hope I'm wrong. They will be annihilated. Hello, Ahan Kunja here. Throw away because I don't need my art/privacy getting exposed by myself lol. We honestly are still trying to hold up and are still fighting back against the CCP. With the virus still going on, we are still trying to fight back with loads of different ways. But in the long run, we are still probably going to lose. But despite that, we are going to fight till the very end. The ones with sufficient funds will most likely immigrate. My mom told me I should go on a boarding school in Taiwan as soon as possible. I'm a student who's in secondary, but honestly I'm not really ready. But I know it needs to be done. Wish me luck. I'm nervous. There's a new law being enforced on us right now, and it invades our privacy. So our family life is now sponsored by NordVPN. Me and my brother still find this funny. I guess that's both a meme and a needed thing for us right now. If you see this, please spread the word. We need as much help as we can get, and telling anyone to spread the word will help us out. Stand with Hong Kong. China built the perfect surveillance system under the nose of liberal Western societies while they looked away. Hong Kong is an example that looking away is not the solution. Soon Hong Kong will be a neighbor, and then it will be your own country. The West still has enough leverage to arm twist China. This might not be the case, however, if things continue in the path they are going. China is a threat to the entire world. Only the West has the moral and economic capacity to fight China. It should take a stand against China, and stand by it until the surveillance systems are dismantled and destroyed. There should be a WPO, World Privacy Organization, which would only look at privacy issues and flag countries like China or even corporations when they start drifting towards surveillance states. The platforms where disinformation campaigns are being run should be held responsible for what's posted. China's efforts in Africa should be countered by combined Western investment and protection. Poorer countries in China's neighborhood should be brought together into alliance and given support. There should be efforts to improve literacy rate and education standards across the globe. Education is our best chance of protecting and spreading democracy, and can also be used to convince people on the merits of democracy. There should be efforts to push pro-democratic propaganda or destabilizing conspiracies into Chinese net. This applies to Russia too. Apparently the National People's Congress in Beijing is introducing a new security law that would end the one country two systems arrangement and would end the area of freedom and prosperity for Hong Kong. I'm a Hong Kong resident and didn't even realize this was happening until I found this post and looked up news sites. A lot of people in HK don't really care. You have those silently protesting or not for what China is doing, but there's no action from them. A lot of people are also vocal about the inconvenience brought about by the protests. I heard someone say back in November that they couldn't shop with all the roads being blocked. Older people are saying, what are the college protesters doing when all they need to do is study? What China is doing is bad, but nothing can be done at this point but to try and slow down the takeover. A lot of Hakka are saying here, if they can immigrate they will. Just like in 1997, when they think the situation will be bad, loads of Hakkas left for Australia, Canada, UK, etc. They came back when they thought the situation got better, so they can take advantage of their dual citizenship. Nobody really cares what happens here except for those that have nowhere else to go, and majority of them have already surrendered, mentally at least. I may sound a bit dumb here, but I've wanted to ask a questions of why doesn't China just let HK be independent? Like surely it's not worth the trouble of the past year of protests, and how long future protests will last. I'm guessing all this police and military presence costs a lot of money. And then there's the issue of how this impacts how the rest of the world sees/condemns their actions. Is it really worth it for China? Yes, it is worth it for them. If they let Hong Kong go, then that'll be showing a sign of weakness, and places like Taiwan will take advantage of that. Mainland Chinese here. A lot of people are criticizing the one country two systems policy. They don't think that works. I don't think you understand the whole picture. The fact is that the original proposer of this policy thought in a certain time frame the mainland China and those previously colonized districts would become more and more similar in terms of culture, politics, and economy. Under that circumstances, Hong Kong and other regions would be merged into mainland China. It is a good idea, but fundamentally flawed, because it only works when both parties are having goodwills of making this work by changing and evolving themselves to a better version of themselves. However, as people see, differences are getting bigger and bigger. Politically, mainland China has become more politically centralized. And also, culturally, a lot of Hokkers and Wanese think mainland Chinese are lesser people, inferior species. Sigh. I'm not here to take a stance in this Reddit crusade against Beijing. I just wanted to tell people that I really liked the idea of one country two systems. I really liked the idea of everybody becoming a big reunited family again. Ideally it could have worked, but it seems like Xi is trying to increase his power grip on the world. China wasn't this aggressive around the time of the handover. As a Taiwanese American, I know a lot of Taiwanese people were looking at HK as an example, if one country two systems would work or not. If the CCP were truly committed to one country, two systems, likely there would be some small tensions, but nothing like this. They turned themselves into a pickle. I agree, funniest chiz I've ever seen. It's going to become like mainland China. Communist. Removed. China is state capitalist. China and CCP is too powerful and economically important to every major power. So, no country is going to offer Hong Kong protesters any support, and one, without foreign support too. Any local leader acting like a catalyst to the movement. The harsh reality is that it's just a matter of time before everything and everyone settles down and is business like before. Unfortunately, Reddit has become one bubble, and as much as we all would love to see some change, this kind of ground reality almost never gets acknowledged here. Violent and bloody protests, but ultimately Hong Kong will be absorbed by China and the world won't stooches because trade deals and greed. Read about what they did in Tibet. Not only the moral abominations that are the crimes against humanity they committed every day, but their procedure to control the country. Hong Kong will slowly just become another Chinese city over time. It will lose its old privileged position as the gateway into China. The one country, two systems will give way to one country, one system. And without outside help, I don't suspect the people of Hong Kong can prevent this. The plan would have done another Tiananmen Square marker by now, if social media didn't exist. You know it's going to be similar to Tiananmen, they don't stand a chance. And once the slaughter is over, the government will just act like it never happened. Will US intervention help Hong Kong? Can someone explain why the UN can't step up and say this is unacceptable? The people of Hong Kong will stage another protest, which I think is already happening though. My personal prediction about said protest is that it's going to be a lot more violent, and some of the Hong Kong police will hopefully be killed in the process. If all else fails, we start a war. Let's imagine Hong Kong is Poland. And you now see where this is going. Luckily Hong Kong is not like Czechoslovakia back in WW2. It's becoming another Tibet. It is called no help from Western countries. At all. Most likely martial law. Remember Tiananmen Square? That's what's gonna happen. I'm going to be honest here. Unless all the Hong Kong people have guns, the Chinese are smart. They probably won't fall for the same trap twice. The world wants China to make another marker so they can hammer down on China once and for all, especially America, since they see that America is overtaking China. Nothing. It's just the current deflection for the alt-right, because caravans and Muslims lost their pizzazz. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.